men and women throughout the world, and all those who have passed away during the past week, especially Ray Kakarika. Kaki was a 46-year employee of the DPW who passed away recently. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
Mr. Rogan? Mr. Loscom?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. McGough?
Here. Let the record show that Mr. Rogan did speak to me earlier, and he will be unable to attend tonight's meeting. Dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, minutes of the regular meeting of the Scranton Housing Authority held March 3rd, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B, tax assessor's report, hearing date to be held April 23rd, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Any clerk's notes?
Nothing, Mr. McGough?
Do any council members have announcements at this time?
Yes, I have one. I mentioned this last week, just to mention it again. This Saturday, the Scranton School District will be raising money in the fight against autism from 12 to 2 p.m. April 19th, this Saturday, as I said, at the Southside Bowling Lanes. The event is called Throwing Strikes Against Autism. Tickets are $12 and can be purchased at the door. Your ticket covers 2 games of bowling and shoe rentals. All proceeds will benefit autistic support classrooms throughout the school district. The Scranton Police Department will provide a car seat check throughout the event, and the Scranton Fire Department will be at the event with their smokehouse and an engine for children to tour. That is all. Thank you.
Mr. Wexler?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Nothing. Thank you.
We did receive a notice on the Take Back the Night, which will be held Thursday, April 24th. It says this is sponsored by the Jane Copus Women's Center at the University of Scranton and the Women's Resource Center. It will start at 5:30. A pre-rally will begin at 5:30 p.m. on the Dion Green at the University of Scranton, and at 7:30 it says we will join community members to march down to the Lackawanna Courthouse, where we will stand in solidarity with those who have experienced violence. If there are any questions about Take Back the Night, you can contact the Jane Copus Women's Center at 570-941-6194. Also, I would like to again remind citizens that City Hall will be closed this Friday, and that the following Monday is a DPW holiday, and it may push refuse and recycling collections back a day for people. Okay, and that is all.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, city resident.
Good evening.
I want to say first how much I appreciate Mr. Quinn's hosting the debate last night for the 112th and 113 legislative districts. I found it very informative, and I would like to see many more of those in the future. I think that's great for voter education. My second item, it's a shame that Mr. Rogan's not here tonight. Back on January 16th, we discussed the North Scranton Junior High School project and the Goodwill project. And I asked Mr. Rogan when he thought we would know whether or not that project was going to be viable or it was going to be dead and needed to be shelved so we could cut our losses. And he set the date, April 16th, the day after tax day. So give him a heads up. I will be back here next Thursday asking him the same question, because I'm concerned that that project is going to get out of mind, out of sight, and just continue, and if there's problems with it, we need to address them now, okay? And next, item 5C, the PFM Financial Advisory Services contract. I looked at the background paperwork in the office from both the city and from PFM. I would like to know, is there a cap on the number of billable hours? Because without a cap on billable hours, you have no idea how much we're going to be paying per year for this 4-year contract. And even though they're deferring the fees for 2014 till next year, we don't want another situation like we had with Carl Greco, where we could not take the bill when it finally came due. Okay, I really think the city ought to look at, it's got to be some kind of cap because we're in trouble. Okay, and there's no reason to believe that we won't be under budget pressure next year also. So please find out if you can, what kind of cap is going to be put on that. Also, just for your information, there's a discrepancy in the bill per hour of billable hours. In the city's paperwork for the analyst, it says $275 per hour per analyst. In PFM, it says $225 per hour per analyst. And $50 may not seem like much depending on how many billable hours you have. That should be resolved. And good luck fixing all the potholes. I think DPW is doing as good a job as they possibly can. You can't be everywhere at the same time, and I just hope that the weather improves. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
Ozzie Quinn, Scranton. Good evening.
Good evening.
First, I want to thank John for the debate, but actually it was put on by the Scranton and Lackawanna County Taxpayers Association. It wasn't myself, and there were questions that were submitted. Were all neutral questions submitted by the members, one Tom Varsky. But 112, 113 covers the entire city, you know, so this race is very important because of the way the status of the city is in regards to distressed city and whatnot, and how things are going to move along in the House for the city of Scranton, you know? So that's why I think that anybody that didn't see the debate, they should Google ECTV's schedule and watch the debate. Or the Scranton Times had a good article, Boris did a good job covering it last night. Because anything you hear on hearsay or whatnot radio is just hearsay, okay? You get it, watch out on ECTV because they're very important issues out there. So I want to thank everybody on that. The Hill Neighborhood Association is going to meet next Wednesday, that's April 23rd at 7 p.m. at the Immaculate Conception Church Hall basement. We'd appreciate it if someone from council would, somebody would represent council. We changed it from Thursdays, usually our meeting, to Wednesday, so somebody from city council could come, okay? Now, 5D and 5E have to do with the Harrison Avenue Bridge, and that is on our agenda. So, I mean, you can rest assured that the decorum will be held to the utmost respect for anybody that attends, okay? And, but we love to have someone there that's representing the people of the Hill section. So I do want to thank you for that. That's about all I have to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Quinn.
I plan on attending the meeting on Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. Oakes.
Dave Dobson?
Good evening, Dave Dobson, resident.
Good evening.
of Scranton. Taxes paid, partially. Okay, a few weeks ago, I made some mentions about the sewage plant, and there's a person in Scranton, he's the head of the Lackawanna River Corridor Association, and he's a wealth of knowledge on the river and sewage plant issues. And if anybody wants his name, I could give you his name after the meeting, but I would recommend before any of these issues come up, that he be brought in, and we could consult with him on what the implications are of a possible private-public partnership or whatever. And the one thing I'd like to caution about is the last time it seems that when American Anglian ran the sewer plant, we were liable for any goals they failed to meet. So we were fined, and the fines could have been exponentially higher if the federal government wanted to play hardball. And another thing I'd like to see is city school and the city maintenance tax separated. I seem to get it. I'll have to look over my form a little better, but it would be nice to know. Maybe it's just that I looked at my mortgage statement, but who's charging what and how much. And now, Act 47, I have a question for the state. When will they start compensated for required tax exempts? It's their constitution, it's the state constitution that requires us to accept these as tax exempt, and then they're also requiring us to make up for the fact that they're tax exempt out of our pockets, which is, in my opinion, a double tax. It's just not acceptable that they can have a constitution that requires us to accept a tax exempt and with no recourse, and then they want to come in and preach at the choir later when the financial problems hit the fan. And I'd also like to remind people, get out and vote. It's only a couple of minutes. In other states, I've seen where they changed, I think it was Ohio, they switched the polling place, and it takes an hour and a half to get there by bus, and there's 41,000 people in that district that have no personal automobile. So, I mean, just imagine if you had those conditions. And someday you might. If you don't get out and vote, and please do it informed. Please listen to what people have to say. There'll be more debates between the two parties. We do need need more debates and more informed voters at the polls. I've worked the polls, and it can get pretty sad at times. And I'd like to also mention on working class people have lost 20 to 50% of purchasing power. Union representation has gone from 30 to 6%. And it might be a headache if you're a plant manager or involved with management, but there and again, my wife has changed jobs a few times, and I've seen where a lot of time just gets wasted and inefficiencies that stay in there because the employees have no recourse to ask for a raise. And it's really, the wages have gone down and down and down on the working class every year. There's a certain percentage. Doctors and lawyers and professional people, basically, they have stayed the same. They haven't really progressed. There's only a small percentage in this country, and I don't believe in the current, I can't believe some of these political parties, income inequality. That sounds like a Marxist term. You know, it's income insufficiency. It's income insufficiency. Somebody that goes to college for 10 years shouldn't have to work for the same wages as somebody that walks out with a GED and 2 DUIs, maybe. Now, please call your congressman once again and tell them to stuff their trade packs. That's what's killing America. We've had 35 years of it, and both parties are turning around and trying to sell everybody an education and all of this stuff, and there aren't any jobs for the educated people. A lot of colleges are getting 40% less applications for law school. So, shame.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address council?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I didn't attend the meeting, but I appreciate the fact that SAPA came up on the agenda here. I've long held the opinion that SAPA is the beginning of a rebirth of this city. I think it can be used as a catalyst for redevelopment and for state funds to be brought into the city to create economic and light industrial zones throughout the city. I just think that every councilman, I hope they would really consider this plan, because where the city sits right now, we want to ask people outside the city we have previously to pay a commuter tax. I really think what Scranton needs is an opportunity to create small business, and I think that can be really accomplished. I think Scranton can become an employment hub in Lackawanna County. I think that we can raise revenue from these businesses. I think that Scranton, being the only Class 2A city, can get a lot of help from the legislatures in order to come up with for lack of a better term, an enterprise zone as a role model for the Commonwealth. Since any legislation that had come through Harrisburg would only have to deal with Scranton, since we're the only Class 2A city. And, one of the speakers previously talked about union membership. And I really think that it's very important to realize that, I don't know where we intend to get the funds to pay for a paid fire department, a paid police department, unless we begin to really do some economic redevelopment in this city. And I really think that, with a good, stable plan, and some state representatives and state senators that are willing to stand up and try to help this city, we could really turn this whole city around. And this could be the beginning of revitalization of the whole county. Considering where the city of Scranton sits, in an interstate hub, 380, 80, 84, and then the secondary roads, whether they're 6 or whatever, 307 or whatever they may be. But we do need the opportunity to do that. And I think that if this council could take a chance and be open-minded and ask the representative of SAPA to give you the whole plan, or maybe it's on the internet. I know I have the plan. I've long supported it because, Scranton's been in decline for a long time. We're hardworking people, and we want this city to return to be a very vibrant community. We want our children to stay here. We want opportunity here. We have everything we need in this city to rebound. We have an awful lot of, top shelf colleges here. We have a lot of people that are really determined to be successful and work hard. And I think that we need to ask the legislature to come to the table and help us. And I just think that if this council and this mayor were to accept SAPA and to implement it, the cost to implement it was $30,000. I don't think it's grown very much from that point. And, I can't think at this time what would be more vital to the city than implementation of SAPA, considering that, we've been through a long, very hard recession, and we're one of the last places where we're starting to try to work our way out of it. And I just think that if we really take a look at this, where is there a job that nobody wants? Everybody wants to work. But if you look at a revitalized area here, Scranton and Dunmore, and revitalize industrial parks, people will come from everywhere here to work. And when they come here to work, they'll come here to spend. When they're done working, maybe they'll go to the Steamtown Mall and shop, okay? And it'll really help us with our tax base because we'll have industries here where we can collect revenue. It's really just the beginning of a long-range plan to turn this city around. And I just hope that if your opinions were at one time you were against it, maybe it's time to reconsider it, considering where we stand and the tax increases the residents of this city have endured recently. And you know, any way we go now is going to be a hard slug forward. We're going to have to really struggle. But that's what we've done. When we've done that for our history. People were laughing when Scranton was first laid out and started to grow. People in Carbondale and Wilkes-Barre, when they cut Lackawanna County out of Luzerne County, they really didn't think Scranton was going to go anywhere. And we were very successful because very hard-working people came here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Doug Miller, Scranton.
Good evening.
Just to begin, real briefly, oftentimes after I, depart these meetings, I take the time over the course of the week to sort of, review the tape of these meetings and get a better understanding of what exactly takes place. I feel that's how you, develop more knowledge of what's going on. And, oftentimes sitting back listening, I find on, not all the time, but on more occasions than not, that it seems as if when I'm at the podium addressing council, for whatever reason, it seems that sometimes there's a flaw in the sound system. I don't know if there's a technical malfunction, but it seems as if, when I leave the podium and, other residents address the council from this podium, it's not that difficult to hear them. And so I don't know, perhaps there's a, mechanical malfunction, maybe something has to be looked at, but I just found that sort of puzzling, and, I don't think any resident should be stifled in terms of free speech, and I think the viewing audience has a right to hear the message that we might present to the council on any given week. So I just thought I'd address that to the council. I have noticed that on multiple occasions and never really acknowledged it publicly, but I thought tonight would be a good opportunity to do that. Moving on to some issues here. 7B, I didn't have the opportunity to attend last week's meeting, but I know there was some discussion on the SECO contract, and there was obviously some questioning by residents. And, again, I just have to ask myself, is this just yet again another political thing we're doing? I mean, I just don't see how we could justify approving a contract when the low bidder beat SECO by $40,000. We've heard on many occasions by our council members in the past that, they were elected to do the common sense thing. And I think tonight we have to ask ourselves, is this the common sense thing to do? I don't see how we can look ourselves in the mirror and say that this is the common sense thing to do. There's no justification for this. My opinion, and the way I think the perception of a lot of people in the community, because it seems as if oftentimes perception is reality, people see that a campaign contribution was made by someone affiliated with SECO, and I think the first thing that sparks, the first thought that sparks people's minds is this just another political game, another political tactic that, we're allowing a campaign contribution to influence policy? And if this is the case, then that's a real serious problem. And I thought that we were moving in a different direction. I thought we were moving away from that.
Just one point of clarification.
Sure.
The head of the lowest bidder, the person that is that firm, also made a like contribution to the mayor's campaign.
Okay, well, moving away from the campaign contribution, just not even thinking of that, the bottom line is real simple. Mr. Peters was the lowest bidder by $40,000. So just excluding the campaign contribution, using a little logical thinking, common sense, as a legislator, does that make sense? And who determined that SECO was the best suit and engineering firm to lead the city moving forward. Again, I think this just, yet again, smells politics. It has a strong stench of politics. I mean, shake our head and not think that. I just think there's a real serious problem there, and I just think that, the residents of this city really deserve better. And, I don't really often, single out particular council members, but I do have to say tonight, Mr. Gahan, I really appreciate his careful observation and his insight on a lot of these issues, because he seems to be the only one at this point in time, and I know it's a short time, but up to this point, he's the only one that's asked any real questions. He's the only one that's asked some questions that have to do with where we're going here. And it started with a while back when he asked, what is the plan? What is the plan for this administration to address the mass exodus of the businesses that are fleeing this community? And we still haven't gotten an answer to that. But I respect him for asking that question, because I've been asking that question for a long time, well before this administration came into office. And I respect him asking questions on this particular piece of legislation. And I hope moving forward, his colleagues will join him and start asking some real tough questions. Okay, it's nice to talk about that we all work together, and I really appreciate that. But I think we also have to acknowledge that you were elected to do that. And so now it's time to roll your sleeves up and actually come up with a vision. What is the plan? We don't need to hear rhetoric and silliness. We need to hear what a clear-cut vision for this city and where we see ourselves moving forward. And lastly, before I leave, I didn't get to touch on one of the other issues, but I'll come back next week. The University of Scranton student that was hit on Mulberry Street a few days ago, I think is just another, an unfortunate event, but just another example that, as I've talked about on several occasions, the need for pedestrian skywalks to be constructed on Mulberry Street, Jefferson Avenue. And this is just another example as to why a traffic study should have taken place in regards to the Leahy Hall project. But evidently, the previous administration, the council, and a judge in Lackawanna County didn't believe that that was necessary. But I think that this is an example of what could happen. Now you're looking at thousands of students that are going to be going back and forth into this new facility, and we could be looking at some serious issues. Thank you, and happy Easter.
Thank you.
Good evening, Councilor Schumacher.
Good evening.
I, too, would like to start off with 7B tonight and thank Mr. Gahan for bringing the change, the variance between the lowest and the second lowest bidder into everybody's attention, and to Mr. Lockwood for researching and reporting on the SECO VP's campaign contribution to Mr. Courtwright. I have a number of comments. First, I'm confident that when Mr. Swanson was replaced by SECO, there were also ongoing projects, and that was a smooth transition. Two, it besmirches the Peters, or the lowest bidders, I should say, reputation. Next, adding a need, as was specified in tonight's caucus, specifying a need for a large firm at this point in the game is either speaking to a deficient RFP or a cover for the selection. Next, the best interest of the taxpayers is to take the lowest bid. We're already on the hook next year for 1/3 of the business administrator's increase of $25,000 or perhaps a little bit more, plus the newly created position. Now tonight, Joan has told us that the financial consultant is, the 2014 charges are being pushed into 2015. Next, I don't think there is any basis for assuming that the lower bidder cannot be just as responsive as SECO without experience. And finally, no matter how much it will be denied, this award will always be looked at as a political decision. Now, moving on to today's newspaper. I'm sorry Mr. Rogan isn't here. I've been after him for a long time on loan status, on OECD loans. Today's paper had an article about a Scranton cafe getting a new owner, and it's not really very clearly written, I'm sad to say, because it doesn't specify whether Electric City Roasting and Zumo's Cafe, which is being sold, are owned by the same person. But back in 2007, we gave a $150,000 loan to the Electric City Roasting Company. And I, for one, would like to know whether they're current on that and how this change in ownership, if at all, affects that loan.
They're not changing ownership. The cafe is, not Electric City Roasting.
Okay, I'd still like to know if that's current, if that's current, but thank you. Then there was also in the legal notices today a request for grass cutting of the Taylor landfill to be paid for by the city of Scranton. Now, I don't understand that. Perhaps I Googled Taylor landfill, and every address I got for the Taylor landfill was in Taylor. And so I don't know why we would be paying for their, the mowing of the lawn there. And then, I guess, Mr. Wexler, it's your turn. Can you tell me how much was in the cash in for the real estate collections through March 31st? Last week I spoke about a matter of concern that we'd only gone up something like 6.7% from last year when the taxes had gone up so highly. And I'd like to know whether that was what we expected in our cash flow analysis, or...
From speaking with Mr. Bolzoni, he's comfortable that we're on target. The percentage was 6.7, but the total cash was over 600,000. So in terms of money brought in, that's the amount of money, and like I said, Mr. Bolzoni is comfortable that we're on target. What you have to remember is this is the first report that we've gotten this year, and so we'll have to keep tracking these numbers as it goes along, but these are the first numbers.
But typically, yes, I am desperately looking for that cash flow analysis. I can't understand how we could be over a quarter of the year into this fiscal year without a decent cash flow analysis. And that's something that needs to be looked into, I believe. Okay, there goes blight to next week again, or the following week. Thank you very much, and have a blessed Easter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Fifth order, 5A, motions.
Thank you, Mr. McGough. On Monday, I attended a meeting of the Kaiser Valley Neighborhood Association, and while I was there, I became aware of a situation at the Kaiser Valley Community Center. The parking lot there is being used for construction vehicles and construction materials for the ongoing project on Kaiser Avenue. And the residents understand that they are on that busy street, and they're being quite cooperative with all of the agencies involved there. What they would like, though, is after the project is completed, they would like to get some drainage problems corrected on their lot, and they think that the contractors that are there should do this for a reasonable, perhaps gratis type of project. They're also interested in, there's some city-owned land next to the community center that they would also like to acquire to help them with their drainage problem and their parking situation there. So I will be contacting the mayor and Dennis Gallagher and Don King and PennDOT to make sure that this can take place. A couple things that came up tonight in terms of the Goodwill situation. We are monitoring that every month, I'm sorry. We sat here at the meeting just like you did, and we are concerned as well. And the answers that we get sometimes aren't satisfactory, but we are monitoring it. I don't want to speak for Mr. Rogan and what he's doing on a basis, but I know that myself, I'm in contact with Ms. Reed, who contacts Mr. Langen, and we do keep up to date on that. In terms of the cash flow statements that we received, these were provided us by the tax collector's office. Not that it's a problem, but this statement also does not include the revenue taken in by the tax collective Herkheimer. So we kind of have to get a combination of both, so we have some true numbers to deal with. And we are collecting those. I also would like to thank all of the neighborhood associations, business groups, and other people who've had these Easter egg hunts in the city. I know for myself, I became active in the neighborhood association as a young person. They used to have the fishing derby at Mountain Lake, and that's where I got exposed to neighborhood service. And I think these egg hunts and Halloween parties and things that these groups have also help contribute to a sense of community for our young children. And I just also like to add to have everyone to have a blessed Passover and a happy Easter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lester?
Yes, just a couple of things briefly. I'm not sure if this addresses Mrs. Schumacher's question on the City of Scranton taking care of the grass in Taylor. From my memory, my recollection, Scranton owned the city dump off Snake Road, which was actually in Taylor many years ago. I believe there may have been an agreement at that time to maintain that property after it was closed and stuff. I'll find out for sure, but that's my recollection, that the city still has to maintain that area where the old landfill was. I don't know if you remember, but that's where it was. It was actually in Taylor, but it was a city landfill at that time. Secondly, I apologize for missing last week's meeting. I'm going to comment a little bit on 7B. I will be abstaining from tonight's vote on 7B. First of all, I believe Mr. Gahn brought some pretty good questions up. We do have a bidding process. We have to question anything that sways from that. I'd like to preface it by saying I know both of these engineers personally, Mr. Peters and John Pochis. I grew up with John Pochis. I consider him a good friend of mine. His family, we went to church, school together, done work together. My abstention is in no way a reflection of any of their capacities or anything, but the reason I have to abstain is because my ongoing litigation regarding the pension process may be implicated in this situation because of Mr. Pochis's former position as a city councilman and having the ability to collect a pension and get paid from the city is basically something that I'm going through with this litigation. So I just don't want to, on the advice of my attorney, it's best not to get involved in this situation and muddy the waters either way. But we do have to ask some good, hard questions. You know, again, we are in a tight situation. We're looking for every penny we can. So, you know, I hope the administration is looking at the whole ball of wax. We did receive an explanation this evening, but I still have some questions on it. But at this point, you know, my vote will be irrelevant, but I do hope that, you know, if Mr. Pochis is chosen, maybe he can work something out with his quote and offer the city more at that point. Because I believe, you know, everyone that bid on this project knows what our city is going through. And it is, at this point, a lot of it is about nickels and dimes. And that's how we're going to get to, you know, get to our solvency. But basically, that's all I have to say on that. I just want to explain why I will be abstaining. It has nothing to do personally. But, you know, again, it's a litigation situation. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes, thank you. I attended the Weston Field Bull's Head Neighborhood Group last evening. It was great to hear from the neighbors in that area. They definitely take pride in their neighborhood, and they do a great job, as do all the other neighborhood leaders and groups throughout the city. There were a few concerns that I intend to pass along to the appropriate department heads this week and into early in the next week. Mr. McGough mentioned at the beginning of the meeting about city employee Ray Kakarika of the DPW. I just wanted to say that my thoughts and prayers go out to the family, and I would like to thank him for his unwavering support and 46 years of dedication to the city. That's quite an amazing amount of time to give up to your community. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy and safe Easter, and I'll reserve the rest of my comments for item 7B. Thank you.
And I will reserve any comments for legislation.
5B, for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the council number 14, 2013, as amended, entitled an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to execute a deed conveying pedestrian bridge column parcels containing 9 square feet each, located in the public right-of-way on the 300 block of Colfax Avenue, and conveying an aerial deed for the airspace located on the 300 block of Colfax Avenue where the pedestrian bridge is erected, subject to a reverter clause, and to execute an air rights agreement between Geisinger Community Medical Center and the City of Scranton be further amended to reflect the new construction dates for the project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question.
Just on the question. Again, I will have to abstain on this vote as an employee at Geisinger. So that'll be why I'm abstaining.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5C, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a professional services contract with the PFM Group to provide financial advisory services for the city of Scranton for the period of 4 years from March 9, 2014 through March 8, 2018.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5D, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a sidewalk maintenance agreement number as noted with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Transportation, PennDOT, for the construction of new sidewalks on the Harrison Avenue Bridge and adjacent Duffy Park, the maintenance for the proposed new sidewalks thereafter to be the responsibility of the city of Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question. I do have, we are going to create new sidewalks at Harrison Avenue and Duffy Park, and supposedly in the near future, they're going to begin construction on a new bridge and take down the old one. I guess for the time being, it's a good idea to put in new sidewalks, but it does seem like it would be, I don't know if it's a cost-efficient thing to do since we are going to destroy them once the new bridge is completed. But I'll find out what the intent is with these sidewalks.
Mr. McGough, I'm sorry, I thought it was part of the new project. I didn't get a chance to look.
No, I think it's for,
yeah,
at least
like
I
you
believe
said.
it's for the present, not for the new bridge. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5E, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a roadway lighting agreement number as noted with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Transportation, PennDOT, for the installation of an electric roadway lighting system for State Route 6011 on the Harrison Avenue Bridge and adjacent Duffy Park the maintenance of such lighting thereafter to be the responsibility of the City of Scranton, and authorizing said city officials to apply for and accept a highway occupancy permit necessary to complete the project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of council number 14, 2014, an ordinance transferring both temporary and permanent easements over 3 parcels of property owned by the City of Scranton, located at 2004, 2006 Sanderson Avenue, 2008 Sanderson Avenue, and 2011 and a half Rear Boulevard Avenue in connection with the Scranton Sewer Authority's Sanderson Avenue Stormwater Separation Project.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, file of the Council number 13, 2014, abolishing and closing OECD accounts with Community Bank N.A. and First National Bank, transferring the funds from those accounts to PNC Bank account listed below.
What is the recommendation of the Chair for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, Resolution number 46, 2014, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a professional services contract with Seco Associates Incorporated to serve as city engineer for the City of Scranton for the period of 2 years from April 15, 2014 through March 31, 2016.
As Chair for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question,
Mr. McGough, I just have a comment. My comment tends more to deal with the process than this actual vote here. I've been in government contracting for 30 years. I've worked on a lot of bids that the low bidder are the winner. I've worked on a lot of bids where I had to prepare technical proposals and plans to demonstrate that my company was the best contractor, even though I did not have the lowest price. I think perhaps if we clean up our procedure a little bit more, itemize some of the things that we are looking for, perhaps we can avoid situations like this in the future. After the caucus was held this evening, my opinion from last week has not changed. I believe that the city, Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Shrive, looked at this properly. And like I said, I think perhaps lowest does not always mean the best. Thank you.
Yes, on the question. I want to thank our DPW Director, Denny Gallagher, and City Solicitor Jason Shrive for attending our caucus this evening. I appreciate their cooperation and the good work that they are doing for the city. I am voting no tonight on this legislation. As I stressed last week, my vote does not indicate any disapproval of Seco Associates. Their great work on behalf of the city as engineers speaks for itself. They are professionals and always do an absolutely outstanding job. As I made very clear last week, my concern is that we are choosing to spend nearly $40,000 more for a service when we have a lower bidder for the work. We do not have the extra money to spend in the financial situation that we are in, and that concerns me greatly. I asked if there was a specific reason why the lowest bidder was not chosen, and I have received a response that is not sufficient to me. The argument from the administration is that Seco Associates is involved in many ongoing projects throughout the city, and to change engineers in the middle of these projects would be detrimental to the city. I understand this argument, but it is not sufficient enough for me to vote yes on this legislation. It was also mentioned in the caucus that the size of the firms that bid on the project factored into their decision, meaning the larger firm, the more resources, and that would make SECO a better pick. However, this was never mentioned in the RFP, so that also concerns me. Furthermore, we have had 4 city engineers over the past 13 years, so this is a standard government practice. I am accountable to the citizens of Scranton and how we spend their money. The dollar amount between bidders was significant enough in this situation to warrant my full attention. I cannot vote to spend nearly $40,000 more for a service when we have a lower bidder to do the work. Thank you.
The legislation that provides for professional services of this nature does not differentiate between requests for qualifications and requests for services. Solicitor Schreiber explained that part of the RFP was actually a request for qualifications, and that it was felt that because of the scope and breadth of the work that is needed to be done by the city engineer, that the qualifications of a firm, a larger firm, was necessary to do the work, as opposed to a single person operating as an engineer. And also in the legislation, it provides for, it does not say that you have to accept the lowest bid. Professional services can be the lowest responsible bidder, and the key word is responsible. And it was felt by the administration and by myself that given the situation, that the bid by SECO was the most responsible bid. And for that reason, I am going to vote yes on this legislation.
And just for the record, as I explained under motions, I will be abstaining.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Abstain?
Mr. Gahn?
No.
Mr. McGough?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 47, 2014, designating the City of Scranton Staff Accountant Nancy Craik as Scranton's Open Record Officer to receive requests for public records, to direct requests to appropriate personnel, to track Scranton's progress in responding to requests, and to issue interim and final responses under Pennsylvania's Right to Know law.
As Chair for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted, and I would like to also mention that I believe Mrs. Craik will do an excellent job in this position as Open Record Officer.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 48, 2014, designating the City of Scranton's Business Administrator, David M. Balzoni, to act as Scranton's alternate Open Records Officer to receive requests for public records, to direct requests to appropriate personnel, to track progress in responding to requests, and to issue interim and final responses under Pennsylvania's Right to Know law.
As Chair for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 49, 2014, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a memorandum of agreement between Local Lodge Number 2462 and the City of Scranton and the School District of the City of Scranton regarding the Single Tax Office Collective Bargaining Agreement.
As Chair for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted. Any other business? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned.